Hello, hello, good evening. Hello, everyone. Give me a second to just share this live stream on my Facebook page and then I'll be right with you. Okay, just give me a couple of minutes. How is everyone doing this evening? Hi, Eureka. Just a quick second. Let me just share this. Okay. Hi, Yvonne. Hi, Janice. Hi, Eureka. Hello, all my ladies out there. Happy International Women's Day. Happy Women's Day. Well, why am I doing this? Well, as you know, I'm always about using Chinese metaphysics to empower, not to disempower. So today, we are here to add our voice to the International Women's Day 2025 accelerate action like this. Okay, so I know this deviates a lot from my usual content. Guys, don't worry. Okay, this is just a one off, and after this, well, we'll be going back to obsessing over money. Okay, but in case this is the first time that we're meeting on this channel, quick self intro. Nice to meet you. I am Pauline Cheng. I'm a Patzi and Feng Shui practitioner, and in case you have yet to notice, I need to tell you that I do not identify as a feminist. I am a feminist. Okay. So just to be clear, I am more on the liberal feminist side. Okay. I'm not a radical feminist. My parts chart is too lazy for that. Okay. It takes too much energy to be a radical anything. So anyway, let me get one thing clear. Okay, there's going to be no misandry tonight. We're not hating on men. There's no misandry going on, no bashing nobody. We might throw some shade though. Okay, so which means that okay, in my quest, which is highly personal to me, in my quest to use metaphysics to empower, not to disempower, I firmly believe in this word choice. I'm advocating for a world where everyone, regardless of gender, race, background, religion, or social status, has access to the resources they need in order to become who they choose to be. Okay, so if someone chooses to focus on self and career and self determination, okay, I'm there for it. You choose to be a homemaker and parent, I support your choice. As long as it is your choice and it is not compelled of you, we're good. Okay, we're not judging. Okay, I won't impose my beliefs on you. Neither will I try to persuade you to my way of thinking. Hey, Kenny, thank you for joining us. Okay, in a consult, I'll use the chart to help my client be the best whatever they want to be. Okay, so I'm doing this live stream alone because many of my friends are conservative and I can respect that. Hello, Flower Healing Art. Happy Women's Day to you too. Likewise, to anyone who's watching who is conservative, I respect your stance. I'm not looking to change any minds here. Okay, I've read enough Batzi charts to know that it is highly difficult to convert a conservative into a liberal and vice versa. Okay, so because in general, people mentally structure the world in roughly two broad categories. Okay, there are those who default to the hierarchy. These people instinctively organize the world into layers, whether it's power, status, expertise, whatever. There's always a pecking order. They believe that authority and rank are natural, often necessary because of this instinctive need for order and predictability. These are the conservatives. Then there are those who see the world as a web. This bunch, okay? This bunch sees the world as a pyramid. Okay, this bunch will see the world as a web where people can operate on a more equal footing. These are the liberals. They challenge rigid hierarchies. They favor distributed power. Neither mindset is right or wrong, okay? But seems like there are more of those who have a hierarchical mindset than those who are inherently non hierarchical. So, tonight, what we're going to do, as I mentioned, unleashing my inner nerd. We're gonna nerd out. Okay, so since International Women's Day was created to celebrate the social, economic, cultural, and political achievements of women through the ages, that's exactly what we're going to do. So we're going to examine the progress of women's rights through the lens of the feng shui periods. Why? Because I'm a history nerd. Okay, so now, I think most of you joining the live stream today, like Eureka, Kenny, Janice, may already be familiar with this, but in case some of you watching later have never heard of this before, let me just go through very quickly. A feng shui age lasts 180 years, broken into periods, 9 periods of 20 years each. So we got we Chinese metaphysics came from a very early age, so we don't have such cool names. So we literally just call them period one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, seven when the best music was created, period eight, and period nine. Okay, so now, um, also I'm sure most of my regular viewers know by now these periods are categorized by element and gender, which means that we can track history through this. Okay, let's go through them quickly. Period one is male, period two, female, period three is male, period four is female, period five is gender fluid. Period five has no gender. Okay, period six is male, period seven female, eight is male, and period nine female. So they're going in turn. But, but, to start our story, we need to amend the graph a little, like so. Okay, we're gonna start from the last period nine, which was 180 years ago. Because there are so many similarities, it's so scary. Okay, so last period nine, 1844 to 1863, right smack in the middle of the industrial age. The last period nine specifically fell between the first and the second industrial revolution. So key features in that era, well, advances in technology sound familiar? Okay, through the discovery of electricity, gas and oil, and the combustion engine at that time. Okay, also that led to advances in transportation, advances in production, specifically mass production, and the use of machine tools. So these sweeping changes of that period nine brought about huge economic impacts, which saw the creation of this nationally integrated economies, expansion of the urban industrial labor force, commercialization of agriculture, and most tellingly, concentration of capital leading to more wealth gap. So that era saw the conflict between capitalists and workers, the pressure on wages and hours, the de-skilling of artisans. Sounds familiar again? Yep, back then, 180 years ago, they were quiet quitting too, guys. Okay, I tell you, I'm unleashing my inner nerd tonight. So, okay, so the first wave of feminism began here, right here in the first period nine. And as an aside, interestingly, way across the pond in China, during this period, the Empress Dowager held the power to the throne. Okay, so back to my story. During this first wave of feminism, this is obviously an AI generated art. Okay, a lot of the focus was fighting for the right of women to vote. And why is it vote? Why vote? Okay, now we're gonna explain. It was actually the fight for the women's rights to own property under their own name. In other words, this was a fight for women to be recognized as a legal entity in our own right and not as an appendage to anything. Okay, so prior to this era, women were often excluded from property ownership unless in very special circumstances. This is pretty much standard across around the world, with the exception of maybe a few indigenous or matrilineal societies. This is fairly standard. What happens when a woman cannot own property? No financial autonomy, leading to vulnerability, high risk of poverty, and homelessness. So, no good. Okay. But the fight didn't last just 20 years. Okay. If you think that the system at that time goes, oh, you poor dears. Okay. Okay. You can vote. No, excuse me. Okay. So, period nine led to the next period one. Okay. Now, the period one, 1864, 1883, the second industrial revolution got underway. So Alexander Graham Bell patented the telephone at that time, and as a result, telephone networks expanded globally, and until we reach today, where your boss from anywhere in the world can still call you, message you, text you, email you. See, hi. Mr. Bell, you shouldn't have. Okay, and Thomas Edison invented the phonograph and electric light bulb. Okay, and this one is not the AI generated photo. Okay, the women's suffrage movement continued under the leadership in America, basically under the leadership of Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton. So these two powerhouses were two of the most influential figures in American women's rights movement. I'm sure there were many others in other countries, but it's hard to find their names now because their names may have already been deleted from history. But if you're watching this and if you know of a name and you want to pay tribute to the early feminist leaders around the world and their contributions, I invite you to please put it into the comments. Okay. So, for example, Emmeline Pankhurst in the UK. Okay. So, next, period two. 1884, 1903. This is the Kunqua. Kunqua is supposed to be female, but beyond female, Kunqua represents land. What happened at that time? Land grab, okay? Land grab, colonialism, and high imperialism. You got it. The increasing need, you remember in period one, period nine, we had the Industrial Revolution, right? So the increasing need for raw materials caused by that Industrial Revolution brought the Europeans to Asia and Africa and thereby changing the national borders in this part of the world. Right here in Malaysia, where I am based, where I was born and raised, period two was when the British gained control over the Malay states. In Indonesia, it was the Dutch. In Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, the French. In China, during period two, the Boxer Rebellion happened, they were trying to expel these foreign imperialists. But apart from the land grab, women's rights movement finally began to see some results. Okay, you see how long the first wave feminism needed to fight before they even got to vote. From period 9 to period 2, 60 years, okay? So the first country to grant women the right to vote was New Zealand. Yay, go New Zealand. Okay, that happened in 1893, squarely in period two. Australia followed suit in 1902, if I'm not mistaken. The rest of the countries, some shit had to happen first. Okay, going to period three. Okay, so period three, 1904. Everyone knows Star Tree, right? What is Star Tree? Star Tree is the star of arguments and disputes, right? Which means that in Malay slang, they're gonna cari gado during that time. Okay, so you got it. World War One between 1914 and 1918. Granted, granted, there are always wars in every period because as long as somebody wants something that someone else has, okay. But this one involved more parties, so it got a more bougie name, World War. Okay, so don't play. But this, ironically, proved to be a boon of sorts for the women's rights movement. Probably because a lot of people got, in the war. They had no choice but to give women the right to vote and therefore the right to own property. So in 1920, women in the US, I think it's 1920, around there. 1920, women in the US won the right to vote with the 19th Amendment. In 1928, women in the UK, in Europe too, mostly around period 3, even though it's a male era. Okay. And next comes period 4. This is a female age. What happened then? Well, firstly, the men got addicted to war. So after World War One ended, they decided that hey, that was fun. Let's do it again. So they started World War Two. So period 4 was also the time of the Great Depression with the stock market crash in 1929, which eventually led to a global economic reshuffle. So, but socially, because of the two back-to-back world wars, society changed. To be specific, women's roles in society changed. You see this icon here? Her name is Rosie the Riveter. Because all the men were sent to war, somebody had to build their aeroplanes. Guess who did it? Women were mobilized into the workforce. They built cars, aeroplanes, basically kept the economy going. But let's get one thing straight, okay? Women have always worked, always. Just that prior to this period, women's work were often undervalued and usually unpaid. Okay, so that was period 4 for you. Now, the most interesting and devastating period. This period 5, gender fluid, between 1944 to 1963. This was arguably the most destructive period for equality. This was the time when the war had ended. Millions of soldiers returned home and they needed jobs. Okay, remember in period 4, the women were in all the factories. So the men came back and they needed jobs urgently. Okay, so what happened is that the government and the corporations began to propagandize and coerce women to leave their jobs. Some didn't even bother to try coercing; they just fired outright. Okay, so women were forced back into the homes, and the idealized and romanticized image of that happy housewife actually came from that era where you see propaganda like this everywhere. And also, interestingly, because the world was finally at peace, sorta, everyone at that time around the world suddenly decided collectively that they were gonna have babies. So Q, baby boomer generation, born squarely in period 5. This would be for many of us our parents' generation, the largest baby boom ever experienced globally. I think the millennials kind of overtook them or equaled them, but that's pretty much. But they were still the largest. But interestingly, China was playing out to a different timeline. Remember, period 5 is gender neutral. So in period 5, specifically in 1950, Mao Zedong tabled the marriage law that outlawed arranged marriages, child marriages, and foot binding. This was when he made his famous quote, "Women hold up half the sky." Okay, when it suits them, women hold up half the sky. When it doesn't suit them, with women is leftover women. Okay, so I didn't promise I won't throw shit like this. I just say no misandry. Okay, so now period 6. Okay, in between 1964 to 1983, a male age. Remember the baby boomers from period 5? Well, by period 6, most of them are already adults, and this began the start of the second wave of feminism. But see again, see how long it took for the first wave of feminism to actually get to the point where we can go beyond the right to own property and be our own legal entity. Okay, so any young women watching out there or not so young women, okay, if you always don't vote because politics is boring or I just can't be bothered or whatever your reason, okay, look how long it took to fight for the rights to vote, for the right to be our own legal entity, for our right not to be attached to anyone, our right to self determination. So please, if you can vote in any of your elections, exercise that hard won right that took literally 5 periods, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 periods to fight for. That's 100 years. Doesn't matter what party you vote for. I'm not advocating for any particular political establishment. They're all problematic as far as I'm concerned, but do it anyway, because the rights that you won't use, that you don't use, will be easily revoked. Agree? So now, period six starts the second wave feminism. Okay, so after we won the right to vote, own property, now it's time to fight for access to higher education and employment. Um, did you know that in many parts of the world, it was only in the 70s, this period six, that women were finally allowed to have bank accounts in their own names? uh, in some parts of the world today, women are still not allowed to have bank accounts. Afghanistan. Okay. So now, again, this simple right that we take for granted to give us financial autonomy, let's not give up that privilege. So, second wave feminism began with a push for better access to higher education and employment. So, um, the legal barriers standing between girls and a good education were pretty much dismantled during that time. But I stress legal barriers. There were still cultural barriers, like the idea that educating girls is a waste of time. So to change that came, dang, 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 my favorite period. Okay, period seven, my favorite. Okay, period seven is a female age. This was the same time because Tui Gua. This is period seven is to the name of the Gua is Tui. Tui Gua governs communications and networking. So this was the same time when many of the worldwide televised networks and 24-hour news cycles were introduced. Think CNN, ESPN, all these global communications company. Okay, so the Duigua also governs the ability to connect with one another. It's a networking star. It's also a creative star. So in terms of people, the Duigua can also represent a singer. So cue the giants of our time, at least in my opinion. Okay, because I think period seven music is the best. Okay, it won't change my mind. Okay, also period seven birthed the era of third wave feminism. And so naturally, after the push for education, after you educate already, you need to do something about it, right? So after the push for education came the push for access to employment or business opportunities. So again, I stress women have always worked, but in period seven, the number of women participating in the workforce increased significantly to the point where uh, women in the workforce became normalized. Okay. Now, during this time, there was this strong need for women to demonstrate that they were just as capable as men in terms of intelligence, leadership, and professional skills. This was the era when the term glass ceiling was coined. So, just as an aside, uh, the fact that feminism was required to demonstrate that women had the intellectual capacity is like, this is like you don't allow someone to go to school and then you call them stupid. It's like, you know, it doesn't the math not mathing. Okay. And personally, I still remember third wave feminism because I was kind of part of it. Okay. So the fashion of that time was symbolic of this narrative, the power suit for women with the broad shoulder pads and the sharp tailoring that mirrored the broad shouldered silhouettes traditionally associated with male authority figures. So basically, third wave feminism was a time when the focus was on promoting the idea that women were just as capable as men. We're just like you. So by the time period seven ended, women in the corporate workforce became the norm, as mentioned, no longer the exception. So yeah, I love period seven. And then came period 8. Period 8 is a male era. Now, we've already seen considerable strides over this last two periods. Okay, right to education and right to enter the workforce. If there ever was a time where women were at risk of being shoved back into the homes, it would have been in this era, period 8. Okay, but right now, in period 9, right now where we are, this timeline, there's a lot of noise on social media about trad wives, alpha males, red pill. Yeah, kind of too late. It should have happened in period 8, okay? But see, what happened then in this period? Everyone got used to the comfort of dual income households. More importantly, in this era, there was a significant cultural narrative around the idea that a woman could and should have it all, balancing a thriving career or business, a fulfilling family life, a successful marriage. Ah, now, many present day feminists decry this narrative of having it all, but I tell you, as unrealistic as it was absolutely necessary in period 8. Without that narrative, women probably would have seen an erosion to the rights back then. But no doubt, a lot of the toxicity we are experiencing in this timeline was probably caused by this narrative. Okay, and next. Now, we come full circle to period 9, and yet history seems to be repeating itself. Our sisters in the US face the threat of losing their voting rights. This is a stark reminder that progress is never guaranteed. Feminist gains are being challenged. Authoritarianism is on the rise, and movements targeting women's rights seem to be gaining traction. So, at the same time, there is pushback against period 8's having it all mindset, because let's be real, you can have it all, not just all at once. So, this realization has given rise to movements like the Threadwives and 4B movement, which actually, if you look at it objectively, they're just two sides of the same coin. Okay, so one chooses to embrace the traditional homemaking over a career, while the other prioritizes a career over marriage and domestic life. So they're just choosing one choose head and one choose tails, but it's coming from the same realization. You can't do it all, at least not all at once. Okay, so now I know the before I get killed, I know the 4B movement is more than that. Okay, I've been 4B before it even had a name. So speaking from personal experience, okay, am I misandrous? No. Do I hate men? No. I have male friends, male clients, and I offer them the best advice I can. It's just that I don't structure my personal life and my personal decisions to society's expectations. Okay. And the red pill alpha bros or whatever they're supposed to be called, they're noisy because they want back that time when women were trying to do it all at once. Okay, so just as feminism has grown and evolved, the counter movement. See, there's this thing called a samsara. Okay, and it's like basically it's like yin and yang. When one side grows strong, the other side must balance it. So when what we're seeing is that samsara. Okay, and anyway, for the guys, I can understand because equality feels like oppression when you're used to privilege. Okay, so but what's more pressing in period 9 is that the fourth wave feminism is shaping up to be a fight for bodily autonomy. Okay, especially as global birth rates are dropping. Okay, and a lot of women, whether vocal or not, are just quietly opting out of the system. Like, no, bro, we ain't going there. Okay, so this means that the fourth wave feminism fight will be very much, I believe, centered around bodily autonomy, reproductive rights, healthcare, and combating gender based violence. So I fully support this. In fact, in November, um, I'll probably do another live stream on how to spot different types of abusers in a Bazi chart. Okay, so if you like that type of content, join me in November. Okay, So here's the thing. Okay, remember the earlier period 9 happened against a backdrop of extreme inequality and social injustice. And this reaction or perceived regression in women's rights is happening again because in people with a hierarchical view of the world, okay, thinking that if they can punch down on a subset of the population, they themselves would be better off. Okay, so now having said that, I do kind of worry about the 4B movement. Okay, in the past, society called us spinsters, they ridicule, they mock, but at least we were just being laughed at. When something becomes a named movement, it suddenly becomes a target. Okay, something that needs to be stopped, controlled, eliminated. So to me, I feel that's the real danger. So maybe we should. I mean, I don't know about you guys. I'm okay with crazy cat lady. Okay, so when you give something a label, I'll give an example. Okay, it can turn into a threat. The example is woke culture. Okay, at its core, woke culture is empathy, inclusivity, and social progress. Nothing wrong with that. And okay, but when it's been given a label, woke culture, suddenly it becomes an issue. Suddenly it becomes something that you need to fight against. But at the end of the day, woke culture is just empathy in another name. Okay, so well, I guess what I'm trying to say is the change everywhere is always met with resistance, especially for people whose mindset craves order and predictability. So, I guess we'll just have to agree to disagree. Cornelis, it's very interesting that I attracted you into this live stream. Maybe you needed to hear this. Okay, so when we started the live stream, we went back in time 180 years ago at the start of the first wave of feminism. And this was the fight for our own legal entity, the right for women to own property. Well, that took a minute. Okay, then the second wave feminism began in the 60s with a push to dismantle legal barriers to education and employment, also for the right to open our own bank accounts. Then came third wave, where women in the workforce was normalized, um, albeit we were armored with big ugly shoulder pads. Then in the early 2000s came the narrative of women having it all. Okay, so now finally, period 9, fourth wave feminism, the fight for bodily autonomy against a backdrop of sweeping global changes and social unrest. Looking at this list, I wonder, what do you guys think of this? Seriously, what do you guys think of this? Okay, for me, when I look at this, I'm just thinking, well, we've come a long way, baby. Okay, so some people might think it's too slow. Some will say it has moved too fast. Is there such a thing as the pendulum moving too fast, too much? Okay, I don't know. I don't know. I'm not a genius. Okay, but here's the thing: too fast or too slow. Women are now at an unprecedented position in history. Never before in the history of humankind have women had so much access to education, opportunities, and resources to achieve self determination. For centuries, women fought for the rights we now have. Okay, yes, there's more to go, but we are at a point where our with the women before us cannot believe. So the right to choose to live as we want to live, these freedoms were won through struggle, through resilience, through persistence. They were not given freely, trust me. Okay, so let's not waste it. Okay, let's at least appreciate what they've done, whether we choose to embrace a liberal a viewpoint or a conservative viewpoint. It doesn't matter, just let's not take it for granted and let's not fuck it up. Okay, because the moment we become complacent is when we risk losing it. Okay, so this isn't just about you or me, this is about future generations. And right now, as we stand at the start of period 9, Women's rights and human rights in general seem to be under threat as the far right movement grows louder and louder. So please use your voice, leverage on the resources available, educate yourself, build your security, take up space, democratize knowledge, support other women, keep learning, keep growing, keep pushing forward, because we need to keep accelerating the action, and let's not stop this momentum. Let's not stop this wave. Okay. Don't let it stop with us. Okay. So now I'm just gonna close. I just want to challenge everyone. I'm not closing just yet because I want to answer question. Okay. Just want to challenge everyone to do one thing today. Learn something new. Read an article, ask a question, explore a different perspective, which I encourage for you, Cornelis. Okay. Because every small act of learning allows you to participate in a better future, not just for us, but for the world around us. Okay. So that's it for my presentation today. Thank you for joining me. Okay, Kenny, I glad you are enjoying this. Welcome. Hi, C Beams. Eureka, I like this. We are created with a purpose, not just for men. I agree. I agree. And our purpose is not just should not be just reduced to our biological function. Okay, and Eureka thinks this is too slow. The arc of a moral, I like this one. Sibyl says the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. I hope so. I hope so. Okay. So Corina O has something interesting. Some schools of thought taught that Satan was not evil, but rather played role of devil's advocate to illuminate and keep balance yin and yang. I'm not a Satan expert yet, but the yin and yang is necessary. When you cannot have too much of one thing, too much of yang is too rigid without the yin, so it is necessary. So which is why I think radical feminists watching, if any one of them watches this, they will say, oh, this is like too mild and all that. But if you look at it through an objective point of view, it's it it's something that needs to happen, because again, when you have one side, the other side will grow bigger as well. Okay. So I enjoyed history lesson. I history nerd. I cannot help it. All right. So thank you guys for joining me for this. Thank you very much. Okay. I just want to take this opportunity now to all the fabulous women everywhere, liberal or conservative, doesn't matter. Happy International Women's Day. We've come a long way, baby. Okay. May I ask what period 9 holds for gender fluid people? If this is a okay, I want to ask. Answer. Um, what period 9 holds for gender fluid people if this is a female era? I believe you will start to see places like are safe havens for gender fluid people. Mm, because usually for the during usually the gains in women's rights will bring along gains for human rights as well, usually. Okay. So, but because of the current pushback, pushback from the far right movement, I think you are leaning towards a time where you see pockets of sanctuaries for them. Okay. Yvonne, you're still with me. Okay, thank you for joining me. Okay, I won't take out too much more of your time. I wasn't planning to do a long live stream anyway. Usually long live stream is for free reading. Okay, so with that, thank you for joining me, and happy International Women's Day again. Good night, everyone. Have a great weekend. Bye.